Welcome to Live Well, Dream Big. I'm Suzanne Monroe, founder of the International Association of Wellness Professionals, where I've been teaching people how to live a life of wellness, tap into their passion, and go for their dreams for over 15 years. I believe living well and dreaming big starts with ourselves. This podcast will show you how to create a healthy, holistic life, empower your mindset, follow your dreams, and make a big impact. Let's dive in right now. Welcome to Live Well, Dream Big. I'm very excited today to have a special guest joining me, Dr. Frank Lipman, and he's going to be talking about the new rules of aging well. Now, Dr. Lipman is recognized as a vocal pioneer of integrative and functional medicine, or what he calls good medicine. He's also the best-selling author of 6 books, including one I've just finished reading, his latest book, The New Rules of Aging Well, a simple program for immune resilience, strength, and vitality. Now, March is National Nutrition Month. And if you've been listening in to Live Well, Dream Big, then you know I'm talking with several leading experts on nutrition this month who actually have opposing views on the subject of what we should be eating. And I'm doing this because there is so much contradictory information out there on what we should be eating, from plant-based diets to paleo diets to keto diets to everything in between. And frankly, most people are left utterly confused about what they should be eating to live well. And so I think you're going to find my conversation today with Dr. Lipman not only enlightening, but eye-opening as you hear his perspective on nutrition, as well as his holistic approach to well-being and aging well. So join me. Let's dive in. Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to be here today with a special guest, Dr. Frank Lipman. Dr. Lipman is recognized as a vocal pioneer of integrative and functional medicine, or what he calls good medicine. He's the founder of 1111 Wellness Center and the chief medical officer at The Well, both located in New York City. He's the best-selling author of 6 books, How to Be Well, The New Health Rules, Young and Slim for Life, Revive and Total Renewal, and his latest book, The New Rules of Aging Well, a simple program for immune resilience, strength, and vitality, which has been on my nightstand for the past few weeks. So I'm very excited we get to talk live today. Welcome, Dr. Lipman.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we're really thrilled you're here. To start us off, I always love to ask people to share a little bit about their story, because I know you started your medical training in South Africa, then you immigrated to the US and became board certified in internal medicine. And somewhere along the way, you decided to study integrative and functional medicine. So tell us a little bit about that journey to discovering what you now call good medicine.
Sure. So I qualified in 1979 in South Africa. That's what, 40, a long time ago. During my training then, so that was during apartheid in South Africa, where, apartheid means separate. So the South African government would force different groups to live in, the whites lived in one area, blacks lived in another area. You had separate hospitals, you had separate schools, everything was separate, everything was segregated. And as a medical student and in training there, you used to, you would work at, whether it is a white hospital or a black hospital, but that's how it worked. And I noticed even during my training, and especially during my internship when I worked at the biggest hospital in Africa, Baragwanath, which is in Soweto, and obviously it's a black hospital because only blacks could go there. Whites had to go to some other hospital, a pretty crazy system. But I noticed then that when we couldn't help the patients, the family would call in the local healer, the Sangoma. And sometimes I noticed that the Sangoma would help these patients that we couldn't help. I didn't really think much of it then because I'd been brainwashed by our medical training, and which was superior, and nothing else was good. And I just thought it was all quackery. Maybe it was, I don't know. But I thought it was interesting. And then after my internship, I went to work in the bush for 18 months. And the same thing happened. I noticed that, because I had to travel around and was in a Jeep going to all these clinics and in the countryside. And I noticed again that when sometimes, not often or always, but sometimes when we couldn't help a patient and they went to the Sangoma, the local healer, they got better. And then after that work, I came back to work at a private practice in Johannesburg while I was studying and writing my exams to get into America. And I worked in a general practice, and people were coming in and they were tired and they couldn't poop, and they had irritable bowel and they had headaches, and I had no tools to help them. And it just so happened that I was working in this sort of hip, artsy practice in Johannesburg, and the patients were going to a homeopath or the one acupuncturist there was in Johannesburg at the time. And they were coming in and they were telling me, well, the acupuncture helped their headache, or the homeopathy helped their irritable bowel, or whatever it was. And I started questioning or realizing that there must be more to helping people than just my training. So when I left to emigrate to the United States in 1983, and I got a job in the South. Actually, in 1984, I got a job in the South Bronx in New York City. I was already a little bit open, or had been aware that there must be other ways to treat people. And I started my, in New York in those days, or still, I think you had to do 3 years in a program to get registered as a physician or to get licensed in New York. So I started doing my 3 years of internal medicine training in New York City in the South Bronx, which is quite a rough area in those days, in particular in 1984. And after a couple of weeks of my residency, I said to my wife, I don't want to be a doctor in America, because the medicine here was very different. You had to take a quick history and not really have to examine the patient. You had to look at blood results, you had to look at chest x-rays, and then present the case to the professor the next morning. So there was no interaction, there was no contact really, connection with the patients, that you just didn't have time to do that. And the part of medicine I really liked was that relationship and the connection and speaking to people and learning about them. So I was disillusioned with the way medicine was practiced here very early on. And there happened to be an acupuncture clinic doing detox attached to the hospital, Lincoln Hospital in the South Bronx then, that was doing acupuncture for heroin and crack addicts. And it was attached to the hospital because it was making the hospital a lot of money, because Medicaid was paying for it. And so it was part of the psychiatry department. So I went to check it out, and I thought, well, this is interesting. Acupuncture I've seen seems to work for some people. I'm going to check it out. I don't want to be a doctor here. And I went to the clinic. I walked over in a couple of blocks in this burnt out area, South Bronx. And I walk into this clinic and I see about 25 addicts sitting with needles in their ears very quietly. And I said to myself, wow, this is interesting. These are the same type of patients that I'm treating in the wards, that are pulling out their IVs, and they're screaming and they're shouting, and they're very difficult patients to deal with. And here they're sitting quietly with needles in their ears. So I went up to the guy who was Mike Smith, who ran the clinic, and I said, listen, I told him my story, and he was very gracious, and he said, well, you can come and check us out whenever you want. So that was the beginning of my journey in 1984, and I started checking out acupuncture, and then got me into herbs and acupuncture and meditation and yoga. But during my residency, I was going to the acupuncture clinic while I was doing my internal medicine training. And at the hospital, I was seeing the wonders of Western medicine, that we were treating acutely ill patients and they were getting better. But after that, we had no tools when the people were coming into the outpatient clinics with headaches and they were tired, and we couldn't really help them. Whereas at the acupuncture clinic, those type of patients were being helped. So I saw that the weakness of the one system was the strength of the other one, and vice versa. So it was a no-brainer for me to say, okay, the future of medicine is going to be some combination of the two, because Western medicine is great at crisis care, but not particularly good at chronic problems. And Chinese medicine was quite good at chronic problems, but not great at crisis care. And so it was pretty obvious for me. I didn't really have to think about it much. And I knew this was the future, and I started going down the pathway of studying all traditions and modalities. And in those days, you had to find teachers. There was no school like yours or no group like you. You just had to find teachers, and that's what I did.
Wow, what a journey. And well, you're speaking our language, I'll say that. But I love how you talked about these two different worlds and like there's a way to bridge it together. Um, so excited to be talking with you really about this concept of the new rules of health and specifically the new rules of aging well. As I said, I've been reading your book. I've been eating my stalks and stems of my vegetables, everybody. I've been intermittent fasting and using my foam roller more in the last few weeks. So I
Good.
love it. And I love how you say in the book, how you age has everything to do with the choices you make right now. So let's start there. What does that mean? What is aging optimally all about? And can we really control our genes, Dr. Lipman?
Well, there's a few questions. So
Yeah.
aging is just the a decrease in function for the most part of your body. So your body's cleansing mechanisms don't work as well. Most of your organ systems start decreasing in function. But how quickly they decrease, we're all going to age. There's not, it's not that you can stop the aging process, but you don't have to age as quickly and severely as most of us do. So, aging is inevitable. How you age can be changed. And you asked, is it up to, isn't it about the genes? Well, yeah, we're born with a set of genes, but most of those genes, 98% of them can be either upregulated or downregulated. Or another way of, saying that is how your genes are expressed is determined by how you live your life. So genes can be, you can, I have terrible genes. I now do the nutritional genetic tests that you can do to check for these nutritional genes. And, I have terrible genes for heart disease, for diabetes, for blood pressure, for oxidative stress. I have all of them, but whether I present with cancer or heart disease or all of that is determined by how I live my life. So, the genes can be upregulated or downregulated. So yes, you can have terrible genes like me, but if you eat well and exercise and do, read my book, see what I think is the right things to do, you can, increase your health span which is the amount of time you stay healthy and well and, without being disabled, because unfortunately most of us think of increasing our lifespan, or that's the way we think of it in the culture of you want to live to 90 or 100 or 110. Well, it should be about how vital you are until that age. I want to live to 90, 100, 110, being vital and with it and being able to play with my grandchildren and do all the things that I want to do. And then just, in a couple of days, in a week or whatever, just snuff it and go. So, I don't want to struggle and be out of it and not be able to move properly and not be able to do the things I do when I get older. So that's what I view as sort of increasing the health span, staying healthy as we get older. And then just, we're all going to die, but why do we have to suffer for years and years before we die?
Mm-hmm. Well, I love how you talk about the difference between health span and lifespan, right? Lifespan is like from birth till death. And what you're saying is health span is basically how you live that time, right? And you can live it well if you follow certain things in your book, which I have to say, I love how your book reads. The information and the guidance is just so easy to take in instead of kind of getting bogged down in tons of science and studies. I think for the reader, it really provides a plan and tips that for me make it much easier to say, okay, I can do this. I can do this tip this week. I can make this change and kind of build from there. So you lay out this plan about strengthening our immunity, increasing our energy, all this. But one of the first steps in your plan is, I was a little shocked, is eating less, which you say is one of the biggest factors in healthy aging, eating less. Tell us a little bit about that. Why should we eat less? And how much less are we talking about for those of us who love food?
Well, I love food too. Uh, so eating less, I mean, actually one of the most research on aging that's been done has been about just eating less, prolonging our lives. But the idea or why this is the case is, as I mentioned earlier, as we get older, our cleansing mechanisms, it's called autophagy, the cellular cleansing mechanisms of our body decrease. So the more you eat, the more load you put on these cleansing mechanisms. And, if the less load you put on them, they don't have to work so hard, and that's better for aging. So it's not that difficult. I mean, I love food too, but I just eat 2 meals a day now. I don't eat breakfast anymore. And that makes it so much easier. So for instance, I haven't eaten today yet. After this, I'll go have some food, and it actually gets easier and easier once you start doing it, to just fast or not eat any food for longer periods and only eat all your calories in a certain amount of hours. So it's pretty easy just to eat 2 meals a day. We just used to eating, we have this idea of breakfast like a king, lunch like whatever. I can't even remember it anymore. And I used to promote that too. I used to think breakfast was the most important meal of the day. But as we get older, I realize I don't need breakfast. I have my black cup of coffee. I've had actually 2 this morning. I thought I better be a little bit more awake for this. Not that I'm not, but and I don't get hungry. It's easy. So I'm going to have lunch after this, and then I'll have dinner at like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and I don't get hungry. So it's actually not that difficult. And it's the most research on aging that has been done has been on eating less, the most positive research. And it's not that you can't enjoy food. I enjoy my food just as much. I just don't eat crap as much as I used to, maybe.
Well, you're starting to touch on this idea of intermittent fasting, which you talk about in the book. And I got to say, I've been trying it out for the past few weeks, starting to feel really good. Now, is it something you recommend just for people over 40 who are thinking about kind of the second half of their life? Or should younger people, or should everyone consider intermittent fasting? And talk to us a little bit about intermittent fasting.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a great question. No, I don't think everyone needs to do it. I look at my daughter. She's got a year-old kid, and she's breastfeeding. She definitely shouldn't be intermittent fasting. I think so. You brought up something that I mentioned. I think I mentioned in the book. I mean, I divide life up in a way to 0 to 40 is a little bit of a different stage from 40 to over. I mean, it's a random point that I gave of 40, but in the beginning, when you younger than 40, you're growing and you're getting strong and you're reproducing, and life is what your needs from your body are a little bit different. After 40, 45, it's more about maintaining. And so I don't really recommend intermittent fasting or fasting for people younger than 40, unless they have a medical issue that we're trying to address. If they have prediabetes or insulin resistance or hypertension or bad lipid numbers, or they want to lose weight, or there's a medical reason for it. I don't recommend it per se, but once we start getting into our 40s and you're looking to preserve and to stay in it for the long term, then I think most people can. I mean, women, and while they're still menstruating, some have a harder time. Men find it easier for some unknown reason. I'm not sure, and I'm guessing it's because of hormones. But I do feel most people over 45, let's say, could try it and see how they feel. It's very rare that when people get into it that they don't feel better.
Mm-hmm. You were talking earlier, like one of the reasons of eating less, it has to do with this cleansing process in your body. You don't have to do as much of it. Are there other benefits of intermittent fasting for people? Like what would be a reason beyond that that would be
Sure,
helpful for people?
sure. So remember, intermittent fasting or time restricted eating. It's although the concepts are actually different. It's so everyone thinks of them the same. But the idea of fasting and the different ways of fasting is it's a very powerful anti-aging tool. So that's the first thing. It's actually a way of modifying your longevity genes, upregulating or downregulating, depends which genes, but it's a way of positively working on your longevity genes, your mTOR, your cyclic AMPK, your CAMPK, and sirtuins are the big ones, but it's a way of positively affecting them. But fasting in general can help with sugar metabolism in particular, which is very important because in the States we have 1 in 3 people are either diabetic or pre-diabetic. So it's a really good way of helping your metabolism and correcting metabolic ill health. It's good for the microbiome, which we should probably talk about, which is very good for your health. I mean, it's just a way of optimizing your health in general. Now, intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating is just one way of fasting. It's the easiest way. It basically means that you eat all your calories within a certain time period. So I, for instance, will eat most of my calories between, let's say, 12 and 7. Sometimes 11 and 7. I try fast for at least 16 hours. It's just easier to do it by skipping breakfast. I mean, some people skip dinner, which may be even better. Some people fast for 24 hours, 1 day a week. Some people do what's called the fasting mimicking diet, where they eat very low calories and low protein, no animal protein, and low carbs for 5 days a month. There are various ways of fasting to get the same or similar metabolic effects. And the metabolic effects are, from improving blood pressure to weight, to blood sugar control, to lipid, I've seen major changes in lipid panels from fasting. So I just generally recommend intermittent fasting because it's the easiest for people. And my whole philosophy in medicine and work, I've been working with patients for so long now, you've got to make it easy for people and doable. So that's what I do in my books too. I try and make it simple and try make people realize that these are just, it's about creating healthy habits. And if you make it doable and achievable for people, they'll do it. If you make it too difficult, they won't. So that's why I'm a big proponent of intermittent fasting. And I try everything myself. I found the intermittent fasting, first of all, apart from losing weight and optimizing my numbers, it's not that difficult. So I just do it. I'm not even hungry now. I haven't eaten for 17 hours more. So
That's amazing.
your body adjusts. It's very interesting. We just think we need to eat that frequently.
I haven't gotten to that mark yet, Dr. Lipman, but I will say it's not just about eating less as you're talking about. You're also talking about eating certain types of foods. And this is kind of big on my list today to ask you because you talk about training your body to run on fats, not carbs. Can you talk about how this works and why this is important?
Right. So, well, one of the other big factors in aging, probably I even think the most important factor, or not the most, but one of the important factors in aging is we eat too much sugar. And as we get older, our capacity to metabolize carbohydrates generally decreases. That's why as we get older, there's more chance of you getting second, diabetes. So the idea that your capacity to metabolize carbs decreases as you get older means that you're not going to, sugar metabolism becomes more of an issue. So I think sugar and decreasing sugar becomes more and more important as we get older. I think it's always important, but as we get older, it becomes more and more important. And what happens when you start decreasing sugar and decreasing carbs, you need to get your nutrients from somewhere else. And actually, the term running on fats I just developed because what happens is when you decrease carbs, you tend to increase protein and or fat. And what I've realized, if a lot of people don't even need to eat many carbs, they just get their carbs from some vegetables, and they eat a lot of fats. And athlete patients of mine do that as well, and they start metabolizing the fats to make energy. And in that process, they create metabolites which are actually also good for aging and your health in general. And that's why that a ketogenic diet, not that I eat a ketogenic diet or recommending everyone should eat a ketogenic diet, but basically that's the concept of the ketogenic diet. You're sort of getting your nutrients that you're needing for energy from your fats rather than your carbohydrates.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is a real sticking point in the nutrition world. So I just want to pause here for a minute. Maybe you can enlighten us a little bit. But recently, we had another guest joining us who talked specifically about plant-based diets, including the recommendation to eat a significant amount of carbohydrates from whole grains, as well as fruits and vegetables. Now, to be totally transparent, Dr. Lipman,
Yeah.
I've specifically invited various guests with kind of opposing views because—
That's fine. That's good.
Yeah, because
I don't think there is one. Listen,
Yeah.
I don't think there's one way to eat. I think different people do better with certain diets. And for instance, my genetics and metabolism is such that too many carbohydrates is a problem for me. I mean, I see it in my metabolic profile afterwards or not. My wife is completely different. She needs more carbohydrates to function better. So I don't think there's one diet. That's the first thing. Okay. So a plant-based diet may be fine for someone and doesn't work for someone. I mean, I'm not attached to any particular diet, and I think you got to see what works for you. But I will say, sugar, if you have a what I see with a lot of people eating plant-based diets, they tend to eat too much sugar. And there's no question about it. Sugar is a poison. It's the devil. And sugar is probably the most pro-aging factor there is. So sugar is the devil. If you can eat a plant-based diet and low sugar, that's fine, because you may have the type of metabolism or body or genetics to metabolize other type of carbohydrates, like my wife does. So I'm not attached to a ketogenic diet, don't get me wrong, but I do think it works for some people some of the time, as does a plant-based diet. Now, I will say, and I mentioned this in my book, and this is to me the confusing or the hard part, not whether you should eat a plant-based diet or an animal-based diet, because I don't think there's one diet, and I'm not in any particular camp. And anyone who tells you they have the diet that's right for everyone, I think is full of crap. I don't think that's right. So that I'm prepared to say. I'm not prepared to say a paleo diet or a keto diet is right for everyone. At the same time, a vegetarian. Plant-based is such a meaningless term because there's so many plants that people are eating that are unhealthy. So I'm not attached to any particular diet. So let's just get that straight. But what I will say, and it's, I've done it myself, as we get older, animal protein may, we have this huge paleo world eating tons and tons of animal protein, which is probably fine if it's a good source until you're 40, 45, maybe even 50. But after that, animal protein negatively impacts your longevity genes. So you need to decrease your animal protein, in my opinion, my humble opinion, because of how it affects the longevity genes. Not that you need to stop it. I still, I'm having fish for dinner tonight, I know. Not that, and I'll have meat. I just don't eat as much animal protein as I used to. So I'll have animal protein, maybe one meal every second day or whatever it is, sometimes every day. I just don't eat as much. I had become pre-diabetic years ago, and I got out of that by eating a paleo diet, a very low carb diet, which usually when you do that, eating animal protein makes it easier. So I've cut back on my animal protein a lot. So there is no one right diet, but I will say I'm not attached to any diet, except that I think as you get older, you probably should decrease, not necessarily stop, the amount of animal protein you eat. I don't think animal protein is bad for everyone, same as I don't think eating or yeah. Okay, I'll leave it there.
Well, you've said so much. Let me just a couple of questions for you. So this is very interesting because it seems like there's scientific evidence on both sides, whether we're talking plant-based or going more toward the fat side of things and less carbohydrates. But here's the thing, and you said it's different for you and your wife, and I totally agree with you. Like everybody, I don't think there is one right way of eating for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, the average person is kind of confused, right? Even in our holistic wellness community here, we've got people passionate about health and nutrition, and people have different approaches. And how do you think a person should decide? Because there's scientific evidence on both sides. Do they go with that personal experience of how they feel? Or do they look at their numbers? I mean, I know I personally feel better eating a higher fat diet, but like you said, others don't. Is it really about personal experience because the evidence is conflicting, or I'm confused there?
No, it's extremely confusing. But the best evidence is your body. So, what I do with my patients and myself is we monitor their bloods. We see how they're feeling. If their weight stabilizes, if their lipid markers, their blood glucose stabilize. Now, you can actually, there's a lot of self-monitoring. You can get continuous blood glucose monitors. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of measurements we can now use. The science is, depends who you follow. The paleo people will give you all the science about the paleo diet is best, and the plant-based people, and they're all full of crap, because there's no one way. Different people do better with certain diets. There's no each diet has its pros and its cons. There is no one right diet. And once again, anyone who tells you that their way is the only way is full of crap. You do need to find your own way. And your own way is seeing how you feel, how your blood markers are, and just, you need to be smart about it. Unfortunately, that is a harder thing to do. And doctors don't know anything about diet. So you've got to, you guys as health coaches and as wellness coaches need to understand that you need to personalize people's programs. There's no one way to exercise either. You got to find, there's no one way to meditate. You got to find what works for each particular individual. And I know, I use myself as an example because I experiment with myself, and then I try it on my patients. But I remember when I was eating basically a vegetarian diet. I was having fish, lots of whole grains, lots of that was I was promoting as an holistic doctor, and I was sort of putting on weight, and I just wasn't feeling well. And as soon as I started eating meat again, and I cut out the grains and I cut back on fruit and went on a paleo diet, not only did I lose weight, but my numbers got better. I felt mentally, I felt so much better. Now, it was such a stark contrast. It wasn't even, it was so obvious. And I hear that so often. And for someone to come and then tell me that their plant-based diet is right for everyone is nonsense. I'm the perfect example. Whereas my wife is a perfect example. When she tries to eat paleo, it just doesn't work for her. She can't metabolize as much fat. She needs, so you got to find what works for you or for your patients. It's as simple as that, or as difficult as that. And anyone who tells you anything else, once again, is full of crap.
Well, again, you're speaking our language. We have a philosophy here at the IAWP, which is we say, be the guide, not the guru. And it really is about helping people to discover what works for
Exactly.
them versus trying to be that expert and telling them that there's only one way. So I love what you're saying. I think it's so interesting. I do want to ask you one other question here on this whole idea of animal protein, because obviously, first of all, there's so many films today, so many documentaries taking us sort of behind the scenes into factory farming and really turning people off to animal protein. And of course, you're
Yeah.
talking about animal protein even being problematic as you age. But if you aren't eating grains and you aren't eating animal protein, are you really just focusing on fats and vegetables as your main focus? Tell us a little bit more about that, because I think that could be confusing for people.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm as against factory farming as any vegetarian, vegan, or I think factory farming is evil on every single level. So I'm when I'm talking about animal protein, I'm talking about well sourced, grass fed, grass finished meat, animals that are cared for. I when I buy my meat now, or chicken or even eggs, I'm lucky enough to know where it's coming from. I think if you can, that's great. It's easier in this day and age because of, so much farms, and that you don't have to get it from the supermarket. Obviously, that's not convenient for everyone. But so I do try and know the sources of where I'm eating my animal protein from. But if you're not going to eat animal protein, and I respect people who don't want to eat animal protein for philosophical reasons. I get that. I'd never ever push people to eat animal protein if they don't want to, from a philosophical perspective. If they say they're doing it for their health, then I'll may tell them that that may not be the case. But the other sort, you can get proteins from beans and from nuts, and there are other ways of getting protein. So you don't have to, I have, my main health coach in my office is a vegetarian. She's perfectly healthy and gets enough protein. So it's more difficult if you're not going to eat animal protein and you want to eat a low sugar diet, but it's definitely not impossible. And then the idea of that we haven't talked about, which I think affects what we eat as well, is our microbiome. How we process food is as important as our genetics as well, because you can have, if I have the genes, let's say my wife has genes that she can eat more grains and more carbs than I can, but her microbiome is off and she puts some of these grains into her system and they trigger irritation. That's a problem. So you've got to take them, how we're processing that food into account as well. So it's not only, our genetic predispositions, but our microbiome is an important part of what foods work for us and what foods don't. And correcting that microbiome is often the first step in helping people with their diets. Because if someone has, let's say, an overgrowth of yeast or some microbiome imbalance, certain foods that could normally be healthy for them may be a problem because they're not digesting or absorbing or processing those foods properly. So it's a little bit more complicated, and all the more reason why personalizing people's programs is so important.
I love that. I mean, as far as the microbiome, are you saying actually getting kind of specific testing, or is it just starting with noticing, hey, my digestion isn't quite right? I mean, do you start looking at just how you're feeling after food as a first step, or what do you recommend there?
Yeah, so I do testing, but I don't know. You need to do testing because the microbiome testing is not that accurate at the moment. But let's take an example. Someone has SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So they get bloated very soon after they eat. And these are people, they're often eating lots of vegetables and onions and garlic and what we call high fructan foods or high FODMAP foods. And they can't digest them properly. So they make a lot of gas and they get bloated. So correcting that imbalance, whether it's treating the SIBO, I usually use antimicrobial herbs, is important, before you can find out what works for you or not. So sometimes you need to correct the imbalance in the microbiome before you can find out what the right diet is. I mean, maybe that seems to have become my specialty by default. Most of the people I see have gut problems, and they come and see me, and they can eat the cleanest diet as they want to eat, and they're still getting bloated and gassy and maybe not absorbing their food. So the first thing you got to do is actually correct the microbiome, or try and use antimicrobials or whatever you're doing just to correct that imbalance before you get an idea of what the right diet is for them.
Well, that's fascinating. That makes total sense. There's so much about starting with the gut. I'm glad that's a focus you have. I want to ask you a little bit about cholesterol, and I promise it'll be kind of my last nutrition-based question, because I know your plan is really a holistic approach, looking at a lot of areas of our life. But tell us a little bit about, you say in your book that cholesterol being bad is a myth, and that studies show that people with higher overall cholesterol actually live longer. Love to hear about that.
Right. Well, that's quite correct. That is true. The studies have shown people with higher cholesterol live longer. But, cholesterol is an essential part of a building block in your body. You need cholesterol for your hormones, for all sorts of things. But um, even the standard test that we use as physicians to measure cholesterol is not even measuring cholesterol. You're measuring LDL and HDL, and those are sort of carrier proteins. They're sort of the boats that are carrying the cholesterol. So, and then the second part is the basic tests we do are almost meaningless. The only important number to get from the regular cholesterol test that we do, LDL, HDL, triglycerides, is actually your triglyceride to HDL ratio. I mean, that's probably the only important number you can look at from a standard traditional test. And that's because even if, now we have advanced lipid panels where we can actually measure the size of the particles. So all LDL is not bad. You get small dense LDL, which is the more dangerous part. And then you get the medium, and then the larger LDL, which is larger and fluffy, which is not dangerous. So if you just do an LDL and it's high, you could be having good fluffy LDL, which is not a problem. So you need to do an advanced lipid panel, which also, apart from the particle size, measures other risk, other issues that are issues for heart risk. From the inflammatory markers like CRP or LPPLA2, apolipoprotein A, lipoprotein A. So there are the B and A. So there are other markers that should be measured apart from what's the standard test. So just going by the standard test is useless. Doing a more advanced lipid profile is important because you're looking for the other markers that could be a problem. And then you need to, for instance, I have a lot of, what we do in Western medicine is someone has a high cholesterol and the doctor just puts them on a statin. You got to do an advanced lipid panel. You got to do a CAT scan of the heart to see if there's actually plaque in the heart. You got to check the neck to see if there's plaque there. Because if there's no plaque in the heart, there are more sophisticated tests of ultrasounds of the neck, the vertebral arteries to check if there's no plaque there. Why would you want to do a statin? So just because cholesterol is high, and it may not be high for a bad reason. So cholesterol is complicated, but suffice to say, the standard tests are not particularly helpful. You've got to dig a little bit deeper. And then, the decision you make, some people do need statins. A lot of people don't. I'm not completely against statins. If someone's got a lot of plaque and a lot of inflammation, and they have a heart disease, a family history, something like that, that's different. But I think we overuse statins. So the point in the book was, don't just rush to take a statin because your cholesterol is high. That is a very naive way of thinking, or very backward, dated way of thinking about cholesterol. That's all.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you said that. It's like there's more to the picture. And I think we have to empower ourselves to be willing to ask for the advanced test, to keep looking further, to look at the whole picture. And that's kind of where we are right now today, because we don't always have all of the information, but we don't know what we don't know. So this makes sense. And I would say that your whole approach, is this holistic approach to health. It's really in alignment with a lot of the things we teach here. We have a philosophy called Wellness 360. It's not just about food and exercise and looking at your cholesterol numbers. It's this whole area, all these different areas of your life that really impact your overall well
Yeah.
being. In your book, you talk about this concept of total load of stressors. Tell us more about that. What does that mean exactly? And why is that an important measure, in your opinion?
Right. So, we've talked about diet, and, you can have the perfect diet for your body, but if you're not sleeping well, if you're under a lot of stress, if you're not exercising, you're not going to age well. And those, you know, how you sleep, how you deal with stress, exercise, and then the non-tangibles that I always talk about are like having gratitude, being kind to yourself and to others. Being kind is probably just as important as what you eat. So, having purpose and meaning in life, all these are factors that are going to affect how well you age. If you don't, it's, if I've seen so many people over the years who eat crap, um, but they exercise and they have meaning in life, and the meaning may be just looking after their grandchildren, or it doesn't have to be changing the world. The meaning has to be something that's meaningful to you. So I think there are so many factors that affect us. We're just so used to being obsessive about our diet and exercising, but maybe you should be more obsessive about your sleep and being kind to others and just being grateful for what you have, um, and being part of a community. There are so many factors that keep us healthy that don't fall under the health world or don't fall under medicine, which is crazy. Um, so that's, there's a concept from South Africa, from the Xhosa nation, called Ubuntu, which means what makes us human is the humanity we show each other. Having Ubuntu, maybe, we don't know, because we don't, although there are more and more studies about these things, but we don't know for sure. But having Ubuntu may be more important than eating animal protein or not eating animal protein, or eating carbs or not, too many carbs or not. So I think, and probably a lot of women are more aware of this than men. I mean, this is more the yin aspect of health that a woman sort of relate to more. But I feel those things, especially as I get older and I see patients getting older, those things may be more important than whether I went to the gym this morning or not.
Hmm. I love that. Ubuntu. It goes along with you talk in your book about taking in good things, right? Yet at the same time, we're living in what many people feel is a very stressful time, right? We,
Yeah.
first of all, 24/7 access to technology. We have the pandemic and news and political and social unrest. How can people really reduce their stress during some of these more challenging times and keep staying well and practicing these things, in your opinion?
Well, one of the things that I talk about a lot in the book and in all my books is meditation. You see, I think meditation is free. It's a vacation for the mind. I mean, it is hard to do in the beginning. It's a practice. You got to keep doing it. But if you can, take time, and you don't have to sit on a pillow to meditate. You don't have to chant om. You can knit. Knitting can be your meditation. Painting can be your meditation. You need to find a way to remove yourself from that monkey mind, from all the worrying and the thinking, and to focus on something. And I think we all need to find, to me, that's probably the most important, especially in this day and age, is to find some type of meditative practice. It could be gardening. You just got to find whatever it is that turns you on, that you're going to do, because it's a practice. It needs to be something that's done consistently. It doesn't have to be meditation as we know it, but some meditative practice, I think, is essential for this, these times that we're living in. And, once again, it'll go back to not only is meditation, but being kind to others, maybe volunteering and, helping others. All these things that we don't consider medicine are just as healing as how we exercise and what we eat.
I love that. I mean, you share so many amazing tips in the book. We're just scratching the surface today, really. I won't spoil it for everybody. I just want to say I highly recommend picking up a copy. We're going to put the link in the show notes for everybody to where you can get the book, The New Rules of Aging Well with Dr. Frank Lipman. You can also head over to his site, drfranklipman.com. Go to /subscribe while you're there. And that way you can get on his list and stay connected and get more tips from Dr. Lipman. Dr. Lipman, I just want to switch gears now. We're going to spend a little bit of time, and before we finish up, and switch to our talk back time, which is where we're going to go to our live listeners right now, all holistic wellness coaches here at the IAWP, as I mentioned, focused on helping others to live healthy, holistic lifestyles. This is a great time for anyone who wants to ask a question of Dr. Lipman before he signs off, or share any aha moments that are coming through. So go ahead, just raise your hand right now if you have a question for Dr. Lipman. I see Kim is raising her hand. Let's go over to Kim and see if we can unmute you, Kim. Kim Goltham is the creator of Empowered Living for Superwomen. And let's see, Kim, do we have you on microphone? There you are.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for this. So I have a multifaceted question. It seems that many traditional healthcare providers are slow to get on board with new health ideas, and that those ideas could really help people live longer, healthier lives. So why do you think, first of all, that modern medicine is so slow to adapt? And then secondly, what role do you see wellness coaches playing in helping people get the most up-to-date information? And then lastly, to increase their health span?
Well, I'm not quite sure why medicine is so slow to catch on. It's I hate saying this, but in a way it's like a cult. When you go to a cult, if you see what cults do, they deprive, what happens in our medical training is they deprive you of sleep, they bombard you with all this information, and you come out of there and you're like too tired to question anything. And I think a lot of doctors probably are like that. They're working so hard just to survive. They're not, they've been brainwashed to think a certain way, and they don't question things. So maybe it's I don't know. I don't know what that answer is, but I've stopped. I used to think about it more in the early days when I was trying to convince doctors to think differently. I don't bother anymore. Although I will say the younger doctors seem to be different and more open, so that's good. But I don't know. It's one of those institutions that are going to be very slow to change. Although I don't think they have a choice anymore. To answer yes, I'm a huge, I've had health coaches working for me for years. They're essential to the way I work, because, I can recommend something to a patient, and then my health coach or nutritionist, whoever it is, actually sits and helps people implement the changes that I recommend. And, I have so much faith in all the health coaches that I've trained. I think, they would be fantastic as primary care providers on many levels. So I think wellness coaches, I have no idea how you guys are trained, so I can't really comment, but a good health coach is like, whether you have a trainer at the gym or whatever. That's what people need. I think, people need the help because there's so much misinformation. Where do you find the right information? So I think having a wellness coach to help you along this journey is essential for most people. And what was your third question? Where do you get
and how can we help them with increasing the health span?
Yeah, well, you're going to have to get my book now and give them my book. I think they're easy ways. I think, stopping as much as possible to eat sugar, eating a little bit less, finding purpose in one's life, being kind, maybe fasting if it's right for you, moving your body. There's so many things one can do. The way I work with people, you've got to see where people, some people will be able to change their diets but not exercise, or can.
Right.
So you need to sort of try and focus in on an area where someone will feel the effect of the changes, and that will be the carrot to make them make the next change and bigger changes. So you've got to see, when you work with someone, you've got to try and see where that person is at in their life, and where you'll get the most bang for your buck, so they'll start making change. People need to feel the subjective sensation of feeling better if you want them to change. So you've got to try and make them feel better. Once you make them feel better, then it's easier to make them, make other changes.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks for your question, Kim. Anybody else out there have a question for Dr. Lipman? I see Asia is raising her hand. Let's go over to you, Asia.
Hi. Thank you so much. This is my first wellness workshop that I've actually participated in, and when you said being kind is just as important as what you eat, like that is everything that I've absorbed from my interest in holistic wellness. So I think first I just want to say that was amazing. But you brought up that you think younger doctors, or there are more doctors now that are maybe changing their outlook a little bit on holistic wellness. But I wanted to know, do you think that means that doctors are more open to working with wellness coaches, like in their offices or collaborating with? And I guess my second question along with that is, like, how did you find a wellness coach to work with in your practice?
To answer your first question, I don't know. I mean, I'm making an assumption just from what I'm hearing, and just from, I have a daughter who's 33, and from her friends, and maybe it's it may not be a normal population, but I definitely see there's much more openness in this next generation, in doctors included. I don't know if they're more open to working with wellness coaches, but I just can tell the difference. And all the young patients that I see, they're so much more aware of what they're putting into their body, about wellness in general. So that's why I say that. But I don't really know. How I found a health coach was actually pure luck, because I had started a nutrition supplement company many years ago. I don't have it anymore. I got rid of it. But and we needed a health coach to help with sort of answering questions and that. And that's how it started. And then she happened to start working with the supplements, and then, following me in my office and just working with me in my office. And when she started working with me in my office, I realized how helpful it was to have someone there to help people implement them. Because before she started working for me, I would say, okay, you need to be on a gluten-free diet, and you need to do X, Y, and Z. And I'd give them some handouts. And when she was in the office, it was easier for her to actually sit down afterwards with the patient and go through everything that I'd recommended. And after a while, not a long while, I realized how powerful that was and helpful that was for patients. So I started employing more and more health coaches to help me. It made my life easier. They loved it because this is what they wanted to do. And the patients loved it. So everyone was happy. And then, over time, you realize that this is just the way it should be. Doctors don't have the time to sit and hold people's hands in how they need to change their lifestyles. That's just the reality. And in this, most doctors don't even know how to do that. I mean, what was also interesting for me, and I, after working more and more with health coaches, I realized I was learning a lot from them. I mean, I love the health coach. I know you know, when I hear Dawn recommend, well, use this grain-free, we don't want you to eat bread, we don't want you to eat grains, but here Simple Mills makes a great grain-free almond flour mix that you just add eggs and oil or whatever, and you can make your own bread. So I'm learning all the time these tips on how to stay healthy, because they sort of may be more in touch with what's going on. So I love working with health coaches on many levels. I'm learning a lot from, you know, the specifics, because they get down into the nitty-gritty and telling people exactly how they should make the changes. So I think everyone's happy. The health coaches like working with me. I like working with them. We're all learning from each other, and the patients love it.
Thank you so much. If one last question, if you had like one tip for someone like me, like someone that wants to be a wellness coach or is working, I'm a wellness coach in training, like what is something that we could do to support a doctor, like, or even offer that down the line, you know, like how does someone break into that world?
Right. Well, you have to find doctors that are, first of all, doing nutrition for the most part, because that's where it's going to start. And you explain to the doctor that, you know, you don't have the time. Doctors don't have the time to help patients with nutrition. I don't think wellness coaches should just be doing nutrition, but doctors just don't have the time to do that. They will either give them handouts or say, you should be on a Mediterranean diet, or you should be on whatever they recommend. Same as someone needs, you know, when you go to the gym, it's great to go to the gym, but it's also nice to have a trainer who can actually help, you know, show you where where your alignment is off, or what you're doing wrong, etc. So it's the same thing with a wellness coach. A wellness coach can really help implement the changes that the doctor wants. The doctor doesn't have the time to do that. That's just the reality.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Lipman, thank you for your answers to those questions. Thank you for being here today on Live Well, Dream Big. It's been so wonderful having you. I know we've all learned so much today.
Thank you, and good luck to everyone. The future is, you know, the wellness coaches are definitely the future. So good luck to all of you.
Thank you. And thanks to everyone joining us. I look forward to our next conversation together very soon. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for joining me for today's episode of Live Well, Dream Big. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. And I want to invite you to take your next step toward living well and dreaming big by downloading the Live Well, Dream Big lifestyle book. It's the ultimate guide to becoming your best self and living life on your own terms. You can grab your complimentary copy by going to the link in the show notes or heading directly to iawpwellnesscoach.com/guide. That's iawpwellnesscoach.com/guide.